Mark, have you ever seen a machine like this before? What this is an oil testing machine. We have a case-hardened steel bearing that's in this holder, and when we set it on this race, and we turn our motor on, it's going to revolve, and we can create friction, okay? We have a 30-to-1 leverage ratio, so every time I put a 1-pound weight on here, we can put 30 pounds of pressure on the race, okay? So what we're going to do for our first test is we're going to do a dry run and see how it's adjusted. The other thing is engineers say that 60% of all wear in your engine comes when you start your car in the morning. The reason for that is the oil gets down to the bottom of the pan, and by the time it gets up to the integral parts, there's some wear that takes place. So let's see what it does dry. We got one weight on there. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can see at 4 weights, she seizes up, and you can see there's a fairly large hole in the bearing. Okay? Let's turn it to a new spot. And we'll take the weights off. And let me polish the race again because we roughed up that metal. Okay? And we're going to put an oil cup on here, and we're going to simulate a portable crankcase. What type of oil do you use now, Mark?
Castrol.
You use Castrol? Okay, I have some Castrol here. This is 5W30, the most popular oil on the market today. And you notice we got a nice bath going around that race, and so our portable crankcase is in place. Now, anything more than the 4 weights that we did dry is going to be the benefit of the motor oil. Would you agree?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see how the motor oil does. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 weights, and she seizes. And she locks up, and you can see the wear scar is just as big as the dry, right?
Yep.
For my first test, what we're going to do is we're going to take some protector or SFR, and we'll take the cap off, and we'll put some in here, just a little bit, like that. We'll set her down. And for my first test, what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it on the same spot and see if it makes a difference. Now, later on, I'm going to test the SFR on a brand new spot, okay? Let's see if it makes any difference at all. Did you hear that change in sound and quieted down? Well, what the SFR is doing is it's fortifying the molecules of the oil. Okay? Now, we went 6 weights with motor oil, 4 weights dry. How many more do you think it would take with SFR?
2 more.
Yeah, that's about a logical guess since it did 2 more with motor oil. There's the 2. Still going. Let's see how many we can do here. Each one's 30 pounds of pressure on that bearing. We've got 600 pounds of pressure on that bearing. I want you to come over here and pick up that arm, grab it right here so the weights don't fall. That's a lot of load on that bearing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, if you're paying $2, $2.50 for a quart oil now, would you pay another $1 if you could get this kind of protection?
Yeah.
Well, that's how easy it is. Okay? Not only does SFR or motor oil have to be able to take pressure, it has to be able to take heat. So we're going to dump the oil, and we're going to let it get good and warm. And while we're doing that, let me tell you a little bit about SFR and protect it. SFR is formulated that you use 1 ounce per quart of motor oil, or 4 ounces per gallon. Now you can use it in gearboxes, transmissions manual, differentials, hydraulics, transfer cases, anywhere we use lubrication, like for gasoline engines or diesel engines. And we're running still just on that little bit of film, but you're seeing now it's starting to warm up. And the reason for that is that's the light ends of the motor oil starting to burn. That's not the SFR. The light ends of motor oil will start burning at 300 degrees Fahrenheit. But the SFR will protect to 578 degrees. It's a synthetic. Okay? So we're going to let her get good and warm. You can see she's kind of smoking. And we're going to put an oil cup on here. We're going to simulate another problem that motor oil has, and that's contamination. The worst contamination there is water or antifreeze. Okay? And they call that a blown head gasket or a cracked liner. And what happens is water and antifreeze get into the engine. And the oil, since it's lighter than water in chemistry, it floats. And what happens is the engine seizes almost immediately. That SFR, on the other hand, is formulated that it's heavier than water, so it should stay on the metal. Now I have a little bit of antifreeze in with this water, and watch it don't get splattered. You can see she's good and hot, but she's still running in that contamination, water and antifreeze. It's not coming off, it's still flowing. Now let's take a look at the bearing. We're on that same spot that we were with motor oil. And remember I told you I'd try it on a new spot? Well, I did that on purpose because I wanted to torture it. I wanted to give SFR the real test. I wanted to do pressure for extreme friction, heat, and now contamination. You can see she's polished. Don't touch it. It's still boiling. Let's turn it to a new spot, if I can do that carefully. Okay, and let's put her back on here. She's very, very warm. We'll set her down. And we'll go back to the 6 weights for the Castrol. There's 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now that's where the Castrol sees, and she's still running fine. And look, there's no wear. There's just a little polish spot. Isn't that something? That's amazing, isn't it? Now with SFR, if you don't want to use it anymore, we'll just wipe this off. It's not a metal plating product. It won't plate the metal. So if we just set her back on here. You start to hear that noise? That's simulating a bearing going out. Have you ever heard that noise before? Yeah, and when a bearing's going out, you know what's going to happen. You're going to have to break down. Now, if you've got a combine and it's going to lightning or whatever in the field, and you want to get that grain in at a lot per bushel, you can take just a few drops. We got 1 drop of SFR there, and we'll put it on that race. And she quieted right down again. And not only will you be able to finish the field, you might not even have to fix that bearing right away. If you go from like wet pavement to dry pavement, you know how that can happen. Or you get up on dry gravel road with some pavement there, you kind of slip and then it catches. Well, that's called a shock load. We're going to simulate a shock load. We're going to slam these weights on. You can't break through. That's 1 drop taking over 80,000 pounds of pressure because we're just on a very little wear scar there. And there's all the weight on that bearing. Isn't that something? Yeah. And you could just order the part, but you don't have to shut down or anything. You can fix that thing later because that bearing will go for quite a while. Okay? Let's take the weights off. Have you ever used a spray lubricant before, something like everybody's tried, the WD-40?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, let's try that. Let me wipe off the race and get the SFR off of it. And let's polish it up real good again like we did before. And we'll wipe it off with the bearing and turn the bearing to a new spot. Yeah, this machine's probably still warm. We'll shake her up good like the directions say. We'll put some on there like that. You can see you got a little smoke left. But let's take a look here. Okay, anything over 4 weights is good. Anything over 6 is better. There's 3, 4, 5. No, 1 more over dry, the WD-40 went. Let's see. Well, the wear scar is big, just like dry. 5 weights, okay? Let's do this test over again. Let's wipe off the race. And let's sand the bearing, only this time we're going to use our protective spray lube. Now, our protective spray lube has a low, medium, and high, so if you got to do big jobs and you really want it to come out, you can put it on high, otherwise low, and it comes out pretty low. And we'll put a little bit on there like that, shake it up like we did the WD-40, put some on the bearing. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's where the WD-40 quit. Let's see how much more she'll go. Yes, something? There's all 20 weights or 4 times the pressure that the WD-40 went in a nice little spray lube. Can you imagine how that'll open up bolts and rusty things, chains, and all kinds of places, hinges, all kinds of applications. Let's take a look at the wear. And you notice there's a polish spot, but virtually no wear. Okay?